I'm deciding to do something a little different for this video. Instead of strictly talking about my painting, I wanted to discuss my thoughts on AI and art specifically, only because it has been on my mind quite a bit. This video is not meant to be a persuasion where I try to convince you to think the way I think. More or less, I want to voice all my thoughts on it and try to find clarity about the whole thing. Probably the biggest concern that I ever hear about AI is the concern that it's going to take away jobs. And while I do think this is a valid concern, it might not be as big of a threat as we make it out to be. Maybe. I've never liked the concept of AI, but sadly it's integrated so much into so many different tools and things we use on a daily basis that it's kind of impossible to avoid it altogether. If you had to think of some pros for using AI with your art, probably the number one thing is that it saves time. Or it can also give some the ability to achieve things they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. Maybe if they just wanted to throw something together real quick and they didn't want to have to hire a professional to do it. But where it becomes really tricky is when you're trying to make a business out of using it, thereby tricking your customers into thinking you actually have some amazing skill you actually don't have. For example, I've seen people sell, in air quotes, digital paintings or portraits that are clearly nothing more than a photo that's run through a filter. Painting, schmainting, you just used an AI tool to generate that. It took no work from you, and I hope you're satisfied with yourself. One of the problems here is not everyone knows how to recognize natural talent from fake talent. Not everyone is going to value things the same way, but I do think as a general rule, people do value personal creativity more than they would an automatically generated image. And that is one of the biggest problems with AI is if it's too good, it becomes difficult to distinguish real talent from fake talent. I suppose AI could take over your job if there is a service that is offering something for cheaper because it doesn't take nearly as long to make it. But that does come at a sacrifice of quality because let's face it, AI is not as good as handmade art. When someone values natural ability and creativity, they're naturally going to want to pay more for that service. Once your talent or skill is recognized, you're generally good to go. The hardest part is building up that reputation. And I think that's the challenge in our society today. We have become very dependent on technology as a whole, all for the sake of convenience and supposed progress. I can't help but feel we're getting dumber in the process. We don't know how to do as much for ourselves because we're so dependent on the technology around us. That's not to say technology is a bad thing altogether, but it is way overused and overpraised. It's very tempting to go the cheaper or faster route for the sake of convenience. It seems everything has to be convenient, and while I do love convenience, I also hate it at the same time. Because with convenience comes the sacrifice of knowledge. The convenience of artificial intelligence is telling us we don't need to acquire the skills for ourselves. We can have the AI do it for us. Why waste time learning and growing your own knowledge base when you could be stupid and let the AI do it for you? And do it half as well, I might add. Now, I am exaggerating a bit. I'm not saying that all uses of AI are completely wrong and immoral. That's not what I'm saying. Being aware is what's key here, and also putting more value on things that are worthy of it. Unlike artificial intelligence, we have the ability to be creative. AI does not really have that ability. It's only creative within the boundaries that are set in place for it, whereas we could pull creativity out of thin air if we wanted to. Granted, all of our creativity ultimately comes from God. He is the original creator of everything that exists. But he does give us this ability to be creative as well. And that's why humans have been able to invent and innovate throughout history because of this God-given ability we have. I can't understand why anyone would want to take their natural creativity and replace it with something artificial. Yes, it might save you a lot of time. That's probably the biggest reason people use it. Again, convenience. Or it's more of a wow factor. Wow, look what I did with this AI, how cool! What a neat invention, which, by the way, it is kind of ironic because just the fact that AI exists proves how creative humans can be. How ironic. To bring this all together for one final thought, isn't it more rewarding to put time and effort and careful thought into a work of art, hitting many bumps in the road and going through many failures, only to overcome them and achieve something beautiful? It's one of the best feelings ever. That is a major reason why I make art to begin with. Even for me, the process of doing art can be quite boring or downright difficult. But seeing the finished result of whatever it is makes me feel like I've accomplished something because I've actually created that on my own. Amazing! And little do we realize how much that passion is actually reflected in the artwork itself. I have never been a fan of modern or abstract art, especially when it looks like a 2-year-old could do it. But I do think that abstract art is still a million times better than AI art, because the artist still does make some creative decisions. The harmonization of the colors and the shapes that are displayed on the canvas. That does take a little bit of thought, and definitely more thought than it takes to type a prompt into a text box. Ultimately, it doesn't matter whether you use AI or not, but how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be known as the person that always took the easy way out? Or do you want to be an overcomer, an achiever, a creative person? What do you think would give you more satisfaction? You can decide that on your own, but for me, I choose to do it the hard way, even if it's not the best. Take this dragon for example. I'm not good at painting, so I think it looks terrible, but at least I can say, I did it all myself.